It's the first Friday of the month, so that means it's time for On Terre Haute. That's where we sit down with Terre Haute Mayor Duke Bennett to discuss all kinds of city issues. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good to be here, Abby.
Well, let's first talk a little bit about something good in our community, is the opening of the new YMCA. That's very exciting.
It is, and lots of people have had a very positive response to that. You know, it's taken a while. We've talked about that before on this show, and just tried to communicate with people. There was a process we had to go through, and then their board had to go through. So it's just taken a while to get to where we're at, but it's exciting to know that they've got a really good chance of being successful. They're a strong organization. They set some specific goals about raising $100,000 before they open the doors, so they don't take any money out of the Clay County wide, but this stands on its own. I mean, some really good solid board decisions, and the due diligence they did before they, basically said yes. And now we're right to that point that within the next few weeks they plan to open their doors. So everybody is really excited. Feedback has been very positive.
Wonderful, and so that's a wonderful program for everybody in the city to enjoy. Now let's talk a little bit about, as we're getting into that, late spring, early summer type thing, we have the grass issues, which we always have here in the city with tall grass. So talk a little bit about that, because it's actually a more complicated process than we might think.
It's very complicated, and I didn't really know how it worked before I came mayor, but you will find there's a variety of properties out there. Some are on the tax sale list because they didn't pay their property taxes. Some are being foreclosed, and just some are just been condemned and in bad shape. And so it all depends what the scenario is of how we go about cutting the grass, because we have to cite them first. So we have to write them a ticket, and then there's a period of time that we have to wait to give them a chance to respond to that. Well, half the time you get no response. You don't have anybody to contact. The banks don't deal with them very well. The local banks do, but all the other banks don't. And so then we're kind of stuck in this period of time that we have to make formal notification. So then you have to run it in the newspaper, and that's the legal notice of that. Then there's a 10-day waiting period, and so we can't just run out and cut the grass, but we go through these steps on those properties, and then at the end of that period, then it allows us to come out and cut it using city resources, and then put a lien on the property for $60 to make that cut. Unlikely that we ever recover much of that money, but at least then it gets on the list to be cut. And every time we cut it, we put another lien on the property and attach that amount of money. It's just very frustrating for us because we know the grass, especially this year, the grass is really tall. It grew a month early, and so there's a lot of properties that have 2-foot tall grass. We will eventually get to them once they go through that process, and then we get them cut, and then they'll be on a regular cycle for the rest of the year. And
tell us, I think this was interesting before we started taping. You said, how much do you budget for grass cutting?
About $100,000 that we cut of these abandoned or condemned or whatever category it falls in. And so we have crews that just do that. They go out every day and cut the grass, and then we put the liens on the property, but it doesn't pay for that expense.
And you still are encouraging people to call the mayor's office if they do see tall grass.
Absolutely. We will start that process. As soon as we get that call, we're out driving around and we get some of them, but if you know of one, call it in and it starts that clock to be able to get it cut. It's probably going to be about 3 weeks before we would get it cut, but we'll start that clock.
But you still want them to call in because that's, a beautification issue.
Exactly. I mean, that just leads to lots of bad things when you have that high grass.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it this morning. Thank you. If you'd like to see this segment again, or you have a segment idea of your own, just go to WTHI-TV.com and click on the community page.